Okay, this is
Hello, last month I told you about...
Okay, this is a reaction video to Lost in the Pond, 10 U.S. states that were named after British people and places. Please click like, share, and subscribe for Lawrence and Lost in the Pond. Please click like, share, and subscribe for me as well. Let's see what Lawrence has to say with today.
Hello, last month I told you about 6 American cities that completely outgrew their British originals. But what if I told you it wasn't just America's urban areas that retained their British name, and that 10 US states did the same thing? And I should know because I've been to 7 of them. That is not a humble brag, it's a brag. See, back in the 1600s, Britain was busy colonising various coastal areas around the world, and because creativity wasn't our thing, we decided, you know what, we're just going to name all of our colonies after places and people from back home.
Yeah, it sounds like something the British did. I mean, Virginia, I think, was named after the first child born by the settlers in the 1600s. Yeah.
Home. That's why the United States ended up with states that sound like they belong in a Shakespearean soliloquy. Some are obvious, while others have a British origin story that you didn't even know about. Here are 10 US states that are surprisingly British.
Now, I knew Delaware was British.
If you know anything about Delaware, it's
one of the smallest states next to Rhode Island.
Probably one of 3 things. It was the first state to ratify the Constitution. It has really friendly corporate tax laws, and you've never met anyone from there. But what you might not...
That's true. I've been to Delaware, but I've never met anybody from there.
...know is that the name Delaware comes from this bloke called Thomas West, who in England was 3rd Baron Delaware, which, let's be honest, sounds like the name of a Downton Abbey character who's about to faint from scandal. But
there's actually a Delaware in Ohio that's not too far from where I'm at, a city.
The earldom, pronounced the same way as the US state, still exists in Britain in the form of this man. But 400 years earlier, Delaware was a British nobleman, an early colonial governor of Virginia, and the inspiration for Delaware's name. Ironic, really, because the guy never actually set foot in Delaware, and even I've done that, mate. Now, people from Delaware, if they even exist, might point out a caveat with this one. Delaware River and Delaware...
Our last president was the senator from Delaware.
Bay are what actually...
Joe Biden, Delaware, senator from Delaware.
Actually took their names from Lord Delaware, and the state in turn took its name from them. But internet listicles like this thrive on technicalities, which is how I was able to get away with this.
Yeah, Maryland. My sister was born in Maryland. She was born in Annapolis.
Yep, Maryland, or as we say in Britain, Maryland, the state that gave us Old Bay seasoning, the Chesapeake Bay, and wait, is that actually their state flag? What?
Yeah, and my sister as well. Gave my sister Nancy.
Is happening there? It was also named after a woman called Henrietta Maria of France, to which Uncle Toby is currently typing,
I can't wait to hear your explanation for this.
And my explanation is simple, because while she might have been as French as an outdoor cafe, Henrietta was also married to Charles I of England, Scotland and Ireland. This meant that when Maryland was established in 1632, Henrietta Maria was Queen of the British Isles. Like all British monarchs before 1939, she never visited what is today the US, much less Maryland. But Maryland isn't just historically British, it still holds on to some of its British roots today. Just look at Annapolis, itself named after Queen Anne.
Yeah, my sister was born in Annapolis, like I said.
The monarch, not the chocolate-covered cherries. With its colonial-style buildings and nearby Renaissance Festival, it's about as close to an old English town as you can get in America. And yes, I did win a medal for axe throwing. What have you done? And
oh, congratulations. I had no idea. Georgia. Yeah, I did know Georgia was British, but I don't know, not sure how.
These days, Georgia is known for peaches, Coca-Cola, and shutting down at the site of 2...
Yes, Georgia, Coca-Cola, Atlantic Georgia sugar water.
Inches of snow. But originally, Georgia was named after a British monarch who was also German. Back in 1732, Georgia was initially founded as a debtors' colony, a place where people who owed too much money could start fresh, a sort of giant credit repair service. But after this plan never got off the ground, the colony fell under the purview of the man who inspired its name, King George II of Britain. Without ever...
Yeah, I figured it was one of the King Georges, but I didn't know which one it was.
Visiting, he would rule over the Georgia colony until 17 1760, which is when his body stopped working. Thanks to the Boston Tea Party and the musical Hamilton, most Americans are more familiar with his grandson, King George III. But despite America's overall ridicule of G3, his wife, Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, still has her branding all over an entire county. It wasn't just Carolinian subregions that got the royal treatment.
Yeah, the Carolinas. Again, we're all on the East Coast here, clearly.
That's right, the Carolinas were themselves named after a British monarch. Remember earlier when I said this? Henrietta was also married to Charles I of England, Scotland and Ireland. The Carolinas were established as one colony in a charter issued by King Charles's son, Charles
I lived in South Carolina. I live in Charleston, or I live in Somerville, which is close to Charleston.
II, who's seen here cosplaying as Cher. The land was granted to 8 English noblemen as a reward for helping Charles II assume the English throne, but with one caveat, that they name it Carolina after his father, whose name, Charles, comes from the Latin name Carolus. Actually, the Charleses have their 17th century fingerprints all over the Carolinas. Charleston literally means Charlestown, after being named after C-3PO, C2, Charles II. Ironically, of the
Yeah, C-3PO.
3 of them, only C-3PO has ever visited, but to be fair to the other 2, they didn't have Comic-Con back then, which is pretty...
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, that's interesting to know. But yeah, I knew the Carolinas had something to do with England or British monarch. But fascinating stuff. Interesting to know.
It's sad when you look at their costumes.
Yes, New Hampshire. I mean, that definitely screams England.
New Hampshire, the state that gives us live free or die license plates, aggressive maple syrup enthusiasm, and that 1 month a year when the leaves turn into an
Vermont also has pretty good maple syrup.
Instagram trend. But long before it became a magnet for leaf peepers and libertarians, New Hampshire was named after the county of Hampshire in England. The original Hampshire, which is located on England's southern coast, is best known for historic naval bases.
You know, you have like New Hampshire, New York, New Jersey, all along that area. The only thing that isn't that has a new in front of it is New Mexico, which is in the southwestern part of the United States. But yeah,
Countryside.
But you have New Hampshire, New York, and New Jersey are all along the east coast of the United States.
Villages in Stone Cold Jane Austen. No. And back in 1629, a group of English settlers, led by Captain John Mason, decided to name their new colony in honour of the English county. Unfortunately for Mason, he died before he ever set foot in New Hampshire, and I'm beginning to see why we lost. But despite being an American state for centuries, New Hampshire still has some very British traits. For instance, the state, which I drove through once, has a love of dry humour and appreciation for understatement and a general disdain for being told what to do, so very British.
Yep, I get New Jersey. Now I know there's an island off the coast of France called Jersey. I wonder if this has something to do with New Jersey. I don't know.
New Jersey, land of diners, casinos, and people called Evan. But before it was the Garden State, New Jersey was named after the Channel Island of Jersey, a British...
Yeah, that's what I thought.
British Crown dependency off the coast of France. Jersey, the island, is known for its dairy cows, medieval castles, and being technically British but also kind of French, much like New Jersey if you swap French for Italian delis. The name came about in 1664 when the land was granted to another obviously posh bloke called Sir George Carteret. Carteret, I don't know if the T's silent. You see, George himself was governor of the island and seemed to want to own land that reminded him of the fabric. When it came time to appoint the first governor of New Jersey, Carteret believed only one man could earn the position on merit, his cousin Philip. Notable among Philip's achievements.
Yes, well, New Jersey is famous for Bruce Springsteen, and that's pretty much it. I mean, yes, it has Atlantic City and other things.
Achievements was that he was
but that's really it.
Born in one Jersey and died in the other, which proves that I know how to read Wikipedia summaries.
Again, New York. Again, York New York.
New York is not only one of the most
That's a horrible New York accent you just did there.
famous cities in the world, it's also the name of the state that it's in, as in the geographical state, not the mental one. The common assumption is that both were named after the historic city in England, but this is only true if we're talking about the New York in Lincolnshire. And I know what you're thinking, oh, Lawrence, since when does England have a New York? Well, it doesn't. It has 3. But the famous one in America was named after the Duke of York, who would later become King James II. In 1664, James received a patent to the Dutch colony of New Netherland from his brother and fellow Led Zeppelin fanatic
It's patent, not patent, but fair enough.
Charles II. Amid heightened tensions between the British and the Dutch, the former took the colony from the latter. New Netherland became the province of New York, New Amsterdam became New York City, and James never ever visited, much like the person whose name inspired this. Pennsylvania.
Now, definitely Pennsylvania sounds British.
Land of the Liberty Bell, Hershey's chocolate, and as it happens, a city that was named after former British Prime Minister William Pitt. But, confusingly, the state itself was named after a similar-sounding politician, William Penn, who, sure enough, never visited Pennsylvania. And as we speak, I've just received this fax from Uncle Toby saying,
You're talking rubbish, you daft sod. Not only did William Penn visit Pennsylvania, he also lived in Pennsylvania. Cretin.
and that might be true of the William Penn who founded it, but the colony wasn't named after him, it was named after his dad. And why was this? Because the colony was gifted to Penn the Younger by Charles II, who was previously indebted to Penn the Elder, who by now had turned into just bones. Today, Pennsylvania, or Penn's Woods for people who don't like Latin, is a place I know better than anybody else because I, spent a week there once.
Yeah, he did. That was the Philadelphia, the Rocky steps that he was doing there. But again, Pennsylvania I knew had something to do with English. And Virginia.
Ah, yeah, Virginia, the state that gave us the first English colony, the most US presidents, and an unhealthy obsession with the phrase Virginia is for lovers, which quite frankly raises more questions than answers. But long before it was the birthplace of America and aggressively passionate tourism slogans, Virginia was named after one of the most famous British monarchs of all time, Queen Elizabeth I. You see, back in the 1500s, England was itching to get in on the New World action, and since Elizabeth never married or had kids, she was given the charming nickname the Virgin Queen, which, let's be honest, sounds more like an HBO series than a real...
Now, I always heard it was because the name of the first child born there was named Virginia, and that's why they named it. Maybe I'm wrong. Again, that's what I thought it was.
Legal title. So when Sir Walter Raleigh, after whom Raleigh, North Carolina is named, organised voyages to the unsuccessful Roanoke colony, he decided to name the whole region Virginia in honour of Elizabeth's marital status, or lack thereof. And in true tradition of British nobility never setting foot in the places named after them, Elizabeth never visited Virginia because, well, she was too busy ruling an empire and dodging assassination attempts. Plus it took 2 months to get there, so ain't no monarch doing that. Thanks
All right, that's 10 U.S. states that were named after British people and places.
for watching.
Which I knew that. Which I knew both some, but all on the East Coast, which is par for the course because of that's where the English settled when they first came here. But anyway, that's Lawrence from Lost in the Pond. Please click like, share, and subscribe for him as well as for me. Have a good rest of your day. Thanks for watching.